Welcome to VCT China Stage 1 Day 2 Recap, hosted by me, Unofficial Artificer. Let's get right into it. Today we have JDG versus FPX and DRG versus XLG. I've predicted 2-0 for JDG because FPX were really not good during kickoff, and JDG are a promising team that I hope will perform very well. DRG versus XLG, I think, is going to be really one-sided. DRG were playing some weird comps and didn't have super great coordination last time I saw them, so let's just hope they don't lock Arena today. And with that, let's get into Game 1. Game 1, JDG versus FPX, was pretty even. I want to say pretty even because as soon as the half flipped, JDG just went on a run of rounds where FPX could not catch up. I think the overall theme of this game is having a better understanding of the map. JDG are playing the old Fnatic comp with the KJ, which means they don't have to reinvent the wheel here. They had a good understanding of the map, pressure C mound, then move over, and pressure there, split B if someone dies, and in a lot of rounds, the FPX players were getting caught out, meaning that JDG honestly had a fairly easy game. Map 2 Unbind really shows the power of the legacy players on FPX. If you remember Berlin and Aang from those past rosters, they really performed on this map. I think it's important to note that JDG opted for the Phoenix comp with the Neon, which is good, except the Phoenix ults in this game got 0 value overall. Game 3 is when I want to point out JDG's decision with how they've ran their comps. For 2 of these maps, they have opted for solo duelist over the traditional double duelist style. In particular, they've opted for Raze over the Neon or the Waylay on almost every map as the solo duelist. Having a solo duelist has allowed them to rotate a Sentinel, which allows them to have huge stopping power and pressure on the map. The Neon and the Waylay can beat Sentinels, but it makes the game a lot harder. On Split, Zeh was playing Vice, and while statistically they did about average, the impact of having a Vice in the game is enormous. Suddenly, Neon has to consider whether running through this wall will be okay to follow up on the Waylay. Suddenly, Neon is stuck in one location, in the Thorns. The Waylay has to commit their dash to proc the wall early in the round and their recall with the hopes of surviving. Not that I think that the meta is going to completely return to having a double controller with one of each other role. I believe that double duelist is the meta. It's just specific teams are going to opt into taking the solo sentinel from now on. The other note throughout the entire series is that the judge has been everywhere. Danby has had his effect. His reign in this game has had a lasting effect, even more than Brock with the Odin back at Champs. I think that almost every single round, the duelists are buying judges. More than that, on defensive half, you're seeing Sovas and Fades and Vipers pick up judges and hold tight corners. The judge is truly unleashed on the map. And with that, I feel like double drone setups like NRG ran could theoretically be the future. Moving on to the wrap-up, JDG win 2-1. My MVP for the series is Stu. He had an enormous amount of impact on both of his Raze games, even though his Phoenix game was not that good. Even though his Phoenix wasn't that good, if he had a couple more ults with a little bit more impact, I think that I would have been much higher on him. Overall, JDG seemed like a very promising team. I actually quite liked their macro. FPX did look like a reasonable benchmark of competition, but I am a bit worried for this team. I'm a bit worried for both. Both of these teams look lower to middle of the pack teams in other regions. So if either of these make it to internationals, I will be concerned. Currently, JDG I think is my favorite team I've watched so far. The way that Stu, Zeh, Coconut, and Yuclaw and Juko all play off each other was really nice. Their protocols on the maps are solid, and I'm really hopeful for the future. And with that, let's move on to Game 2 today. Dragon Ranger Gaming versus XLG Game 1 on Lotus was a pummeling. Dragon Ranger Gaming would win the pistol round and then get immediately ecoed. With great performances from Leo, Raga, and No Man, this game was not particularly close. For this game, I think Raga performed particularly well. As a duelist, it is obviously very easy to do your job if the rest of your team is just shooting everyone, but still, I feel like the way that Raga pathed onto site and cleared his angles and fought with his team was actually very good. A lot of people are picking up the Neon just because Dammy won without actually being good at Neon. The problem is that Neon as an agent, as proven by statistic, is not that powerful unless you have something really good at them. From the side of Dragon Ranger Gaming, probably the most interesting, air quotes, side of this match, the mix pick. Flexin played mix in both map 1 and map 2, and over the course of the entire game, I think I counted twice where one of Mix's abilities had impact on the round that wasn't their smoke. The ult was useless, the stim was barely noticeable, and the concuss delayed once and had a meaningful heal once. Overall, I don't think Mix is very good, and I'm glad that Dragon Ranger Gaming isn't playing Reyna, but on the other side, this could have been Viper. In both of these games, we've subbed out the Mix for Viper, and watching the map and how this works, I kept on thinking about Mix in relationship to Viper. What if you could shoot Viper Molly? Like, how bad would that character be? And not to mention that Mix's concuss is not even close as an ability if it could be shot in how powerful it is to Viper Molly. I don't want to see Mix again until he's either buffed or the game changes in some meaningful way. Game 2 on Bind opened with a 6-round consecutive sweep of XLG winning. With the remainder of the half going 9-3 in favor of XLG, I expected this map to end quickly. Especially with XLG winning the pistol round in the second half, I thought the game was over. Dragon Ranger Gaming would come up with an eco in round 14 to slowly snowball up to an 11-13 game. I'm happy that Dragon Ranger Gaming had the ability in them to put pressure on XLG and look like they could compete on at least one map. On the other hand, it required Vukashu to play unbelievably well. It required a couple pivotal rounds going the right way. I'm not that hopeful for Dragon Ranger Gaming. I expect them to keep picking Mix and Reyna, and who knows what we'll see next time as the season goes on, considering it just seems to be a trend, and I'm not particularly excited for that. As MVP, I put Happyway as my MVP for this game. I think that you could really easily argue that Leo was the MVP of this, but I'm going to lean slightly towards Happyway. Maybe the Viper looked so good because there wasn't a counter Viper on either of these maps to fight it. I also want to shout out Raga, who again, I think played incredibly well and did his job despite him not putting up a statistical performance on map 2. There's a reason why XLG consistently wins and goes to internationals. They are a good team in China, and I expect them to continue this in the further. And with that, that is the end of the recap of Stage 1, Day 1, VCT China recapped with Unofficial Artificer. My current prediction record is 4-0. Let's keep it going.